Hey folks, welcome to our first SketchUp demonstration. I hope that what you find in these next couple of videos will help you if you have never seen SketchUp as a 3D program before. It will help you build the vocabulary, will help you familiarize yourself with the interface, and really feel more confident going into the program so we can model from here on out. For those of you that may have some previous experience and are coming into this class as a sort of refresher, I hope that you're able to build on the skills and tools that you already have. Something to kind of keep in mind is we are essentially learning a new language. There are tools in this interface that may overlap with things like Rhino or AutoCAD if you're familiar. Just be mindful that in SketchUp, it works with its own vocabulary and its own commands. So be mindful, be gentle. Let's get started.
Alright, so one thing to note here is I am running SketchUp Pro on a 2021 version, and I'm also using a MacBook Pro. So if some features or something is not the same as you would have them on your PC, for example, just reach out to me if something doesn't look the same or does not function the same, and we can troubleshoot that. But for the most part, the commands I'll be covering will be universal for both. I just launched SketchUp from my menu, and it launches up with a new window. And essentially what SketchUp is asking is, what sort of units do I want to be working in? And because we are in the US and we're doing an architectural sort of approach to this, I'm going to go ahead and choose architectural and inches. If you work in a metric system, you would be choosing millimeters, architectural, and so on and so forth. But for now, I'm going to choose architectural inches, and I'm also going to hit the heart here because what happens is that's now going to be setting my default for SketchUp. So every time I come in here, it's going to launch into the architectural inches template, and so I will be able to always work in that template. I'm going to go ahead and just click on architectural, and we have a new SketchUp file for us to use.
All right, now that we have our new SketchUp file loaded and ready to go,
you'll see that SketchUp has placed a person inside of our file. And essentially this is just SketchUp's way of saying, hey, here's a point of reference for scale. When we start building something in here, we're able to sort of note that this person's height, for example, would be, let me see here, I'm just doing something quick, so I will show you how to do what I'm doing, but I just wanted to kind of position this so you're able to see that the person rotates as my camera rotates in this view, and SketchUp has essentially placed it here for scale. And every new file that you create in SketchUp will have this element and component of a scaled person. But for now, since we're not going to be using them just yet, I'm going to go ahead and just wipe out the screen, and we're going to get started on making sure that we know how to use our mouse and things like that. Now that we have a clear kind of canvas to work on, let's cover a couple of the mouse functions that we're going to need to know so we maneuver in this 3D space appropriately. I'm going to go ahead and build a rectangle, and this rectangle I am then going to make it into a cube. Now, in order for me to actually orbit this volume, I'm going to have to press down my scroll key, and immediately SketchUp is doing this sort of red, black, and green icon, so it's telling me that right now I am orbiting the screen. If I wanted to sort of pan across or somehow move and shift the model, I would be hitting Shift and then pressing the scroller wheel. So now SketchUp is giving me a hand icon, which is telling me that I'm moving my model almost just like shifting it around. Orbiting will allow us to do some 3D dimension maneuvering, where panning is really a 2D function. And last but not least, zooming in and out. So I'm on a Mac, so I have to go out in order for me to see the window. I'm scrolling down, and in order for me to zoom in, I'm going to scroll up. Now that may be reversed for you on a PC, so just make sure you try it out before we get started. So now that we know how to use our mouse and maneuver around the screen, there's something else really important to note here, and that is the quadrant that we're looking at. And because we are modeling in a 3D space, it is going to be really important for us to understand what that means. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe out this rectangle that I created, but essentially we're working with 3 axes. We're going to be working with green, which is the y-axis, the red, which is the x-axis, and the z, which is going to be the blue axis. So when you're seeing me sort of build these rectangles in this space, and then I'm able to then extract it up, the vertical and horizontal that I just covered is x and y, but then the actual 3-dimensional height, that is the z-axis. I'm going to go ahead and just draw a quick surface so you understand what I mean about the axis. Right now I'm on the green axis, and so I'm going to go ahead and draw a line. When I go across, it's going to be drawing on the x-axis, and so now it's showing in red. I'm going to go ahead and click. When I come back to do that vertical line, it's back to green because it's on the y-axis. And when I go over to click to the initial starting point, it's going to close this 2D surface, and now we have a surface to work on. Now, when it's lit up and I get to actually extract and extrude this volume, now I've activated the z-axis, and so that's essentially in the blue space that I mentioned in quadrant of our screen. Once you get those 3 down, I think it'll be a little bit easier to understand in which direction you're sort of pushing, pulling, drawing, etc. So now that we have a good grip on the kind of directions and axes that take place in this 3D modeling space, let's dive into some tools so we're able to start drawing and modeling ourselves. One of the first tools that I want to cover is going to be the line tool. You can also activate this by hitting L on your keyboard, and that is going to be this pencil line tool here on the palette. If you do not have this palette tray available to you, make sure that you are going to View, and under Tool Palettes, select the large tool set, and you should see that tool palette appear. Alright, something to note about SketchUp, it's like a sort of click and click and click kind of program. So for example, I'm going to click at the origin, and I'm not holding down any keys, and I'm just kind of letting SketchUp do its thing, and I'm going to make sure that I put the cursor and the mouse where I want the next point to be. So I'm going to click, and then I'm just going to, hover over to the right, and then it's going to be on the x-axis, and I'm going to click, and I'll do the same thing going down into the green axis, click, and then the final click to enclose this surface. That is one way to use the line tool. That was sort of me guessworking, right? There was no dimensions assigned to that 2D surface. However, if you look at the very bottom of the right of my screen, there's this length command down here. And so I could do it a more accurate way by clicking where I want my line to start. And then with my keyboard, what I'm going to do is type in 20 feet, enter. And then that is 20 feet. So now I'm going to go in and do another 20 feet with a apostrophe, enter. The apostrophe is really denoting the foot mark, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do 20, apostrophe, enter. And I'm going to do the last click here. So as you can see, there's different ways of creating lines. The one that we just did right now was the accurate way, in which I actually typed in with my keyboard the number and then the apostrophe in order to denote the foot mark. Now let's say we wanted to do a line that was 20 feet and let's say 6 inches. I would type in 20 apostrophe 6, enter, and that just gave me a 20-foot 6 line. I'm going to do the same thing here, 20 apostrophe 6, go down, 20 apostrophe 6, and then click over to close this. So now I am going to just show you this line that we created here is 20 feet, and this line that we created here is 20 foot 6.